I guess we have to give it a few more minutes so people have a chance to show up. While it's still early, anyone who's willing to volunteer to help with the minutes? Because this is going to be one share show today. What? Martin? Okay, he managed to get here. Good. Hello, Martin. Okay. Hello, Ian.
Hello. I know we're going to start in 30 seconds. Does anyone know how to fix the auto calendar invite system to like make it so the agenda like points to the current agenda, not the like --0 version when it creates a calendar entry? This is a really like annoying thing, but like I always open the agenda and I'm like, oh, it's like 2 days old anyway, or 4 weeks old.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was just curious if anyone knows about how that system works, but maybe not.
Ian, for some of the things, like it will put like --00 at the end, and if you just remove that, it will use whatever the latest version is.
Right. So I want like whatever system creates those links to like remove it for me. But
I get your point. Okay.
Yeah, but yes, thank you. No, that's what I'm saying. Like the solution is awfully simple, so this should be possible. But I will stop digressing and go back to things.
Yeah. 72 column ASCII is all I can tell you.
So I think we can get started here. So Martin has to depart in a bit over 10 minutes. So we'll be primarily sharing here today. So first, remind you about the note well. I think everyone's seen it by now. So let's go forward. If you have any questions or anything, yes, ask. And the normal meeting tips, including using headset, applies. So we need a I need some help with the minutes here. So is there anyone who's willing to try to capture the main kind of outcomes?
Mike just agreed. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Yes. So we have some upcoming dates here. First, we have on today we have this virtual interim. On the 30th, it's actually, did we correct that? Was it the 30th?
I think that's what we
failed to correct.
No, that's a typo. Sorry. No, yes, yeah. It's later.
Yes. So the agenda requests for Shenzhen is gonna be basically we need to provide an agenda no later than basically 1.5 weeks before the meeting starts.
So the deadline the deadline we set was 18 February in the email.
Yeah. So 18th of February. Okay. We have slides for Boulder. We want them by the 5th of February so that we shares can look at them and decide how to further massage the agenda if you haven't delivered your slides. Yeah. So this is on Thursday before the meeting. And then on Monday the 9th, we have the Boulder interim meeting. And then we have one more virtual interim on the 23rd. And then it's Shenzhen IETF meeting after that in March. So,
Alan?
Yeah, in addition to having slides sent to chairs by the 5th, if there's going to be proposals presented in Boulder, it would be good to have them on the list or in GitHub, something like a week before to like get people more familiar with things. So I'm not sure whether others feel familiar or not, but that's my request.
Well, the way slides are submitted to the chairs is to upload in the data tracker. So once we approve them, which would be very soon after, you should be able to get at them. Would you like our deadline to be earlier than the 5th of February?
I mean, I want to recognize as somebody who read slides late that like I understand that's okay, but slides are often. I mean, slides are sometimes distilled. If there's a more detailed, be some details on the list as well besides just like high level slides. But that's just me.
Yeah, I think that will be appropriate considering the some of the topic at least that they were fairly dense. So, but okay, what do you will?
Yeah, just on a note for February the 5th, I'm organizing a face-to-face meeting in Denver after Mile High Video on MSF and CMSF. And the goal is to use that meeting to generate both issues and maybe even PRs to present the subsequent week. So I'm not going to have slides ready on the 5th because I'm going to be making them over the weekend. So I just wanted to ask for an exclusion for that. They will be generated as a consequence of that meeting. The other talks can go up on the 5th.
Yep. That's.
I think that's a very legitimate reason, Will. So, yes, we can give you an exclusion. I think the MSF CMS stuff is particularly in a niche where we can get away with that, because the details are not as intricate and as controversial as a lot of the MOQ stuff.
Yeah.
So Alan has asked for just people to be cool about like sending things. If your slides turn out not to be incredibly illustrative, let's just be kind of proactive for other participants and send email about what you're doing or write a PR or whatever it is that properly encapsulates what you're going to discuss.
Yeah, and if you're writing a PR, it might be good to send a link to that PR and with just short notice saying, "Hey, this is the PR for this proposal to the mailing list." So, will help everyone. Okay,
Colin.
Look, that all sounds great. I just want to comment on the fact that pointing at this particular meeting we're about to have today has none of the above, right? There's no slides. The one thing that is on the agenda that you could read ahead of time as an issue is an issue that is mislabeled and makes no sense when you list the issue. So like I'm on, like we always set this super high bar and then we deliver really low. So anyway, I enjoy the striving for high, but our realism here is it's pretty low.
Well, for this hybrid interim, so yeah, obviously agenda building is sometimes a little slapdash for these call-ins. There's a lot of reasons for that. I would like to do better though. So thank you for the comment. Regarding the in-person interim, we are actually, there's been a fair amount of contention for agenda time, and so our intention is to be fairly draconian. Like if slides don't show up, you may just lose the agenda time. With the exception of Will, who has a good excuse not to provide.
Yep. Okay. Let's. So, yes, that was the initial administration. The rest is we have two topics left before we get to the actual technical topics. First is European interim, and the other is the bold agenda bash. So, and the rest is the plan for today. You can read. Let's go on. So, the doodle show that the best date we found for having the next physical interim would be to the week starting with 8th of June. That's clearly the significantly larger participation than in the other meetings. Unfortunately, there's no node where everyone who has actually filled in will be able to attend. That's unfortunate, but so. And the proposal here is to have the interop on Monday, Tuesday, have the meeting Wednesday, Thursday. And we will be somewhere in Europe. Any kind of final comments about the dates here before we kind of lock them in and go venue hunting?
The action we'd like you to take at this time is to reserve this week in your calendars and not book other things. Obviously, you can't book travel because you don't know what end of the continent it's going to be in. But we are basically going to lock down this date now, unless somebody speaks up. And the other thing I want to say is we're certainly willing to adjust within the week, provided any feedback would be helpful to shift it a day or flip the interop and the issue discussion, et cetera. But we're going to do the standard right now, which is people fly in sometime Monday, they do interop, and then we're done on Thursday.
Okay. I see no indication of any comments. Let's then go to the agenda bash. So this is the latest version we shares have of the agenda. We think there's a little bit, maybe a little bit time-wise, maybe for joining Fetch, we hope that's an unnecessary large time because we don't have that much time, for example, for editors to deal with some of their, what they see as remaining issues, for example. So, is there any adjustments people or things people have?
Yeah, I just want to say in particular, many requesters did not specify how much time they needed, and so Magnus and I had to guess, which was probably a bad guess. So we would very much appreciate if we gave you 60 minutes and you actually only need 30 to let us know.
I think it would be good if we could sync up and try to get all the ABR stuff at least somewhat better aligned before the day of, because having 3 separate presentations that overlap is probably not the best use of everyone's time. I don't know. Suhas and I can make sure to have slides like well in advance. So if we can find time to do a call with Will, Ali, Gwendol, I don't know, for like an hour or something in sync, that'd be helpful.
So Ian, are you taking the action item to arrange that discussion?
Yeah, I'll arrange that discussion in hopes of like killing like an hour. Like I would rather discuss it until lunch, and then if we need to go do like technical work and go ruminate on like PRs or like tweaks to existing designs, and then have another hour like Tuesday mid-morning or something. Like I'd rather do that than burn all the time in one day too. So
right. Okay.
Anyway,
thank you for arranging that. Can you just let us know what the result is and what the schedule impact is of what whatever you decide?
So I guess what I'm saying is like the total time maybe is the right amount, but maybe we can move at least an hour of it to the next day. So anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I don't know when I would know that for sure. Yes.
Okay, and I see Mike has a late agenda request. We will try to take this into account for DDoS resource protection.
Alan?
Yeah, so I think consolidating ABR ahead of time, and that's again one where I think like sending a couple paragraphs to the list, or I know Switch has a PR, but the other stuff, I mean, if they're even a sketch of a PR could like really, I think, help accelerate the discussion and make the maximum use of everyone's synchronous time. A couple other quick notes. I think for extensibility, probably better makes more sense to put Ian's name there than mine. And you know, the joining fetch is like absolutely a placeholder. I just want to leave Boulder with like a final plan of whatever we're going to do. And from my perspective, it's like one of the biggest sort of like categories that's needs this like big discussion time. So maybe it doesn't take 3 hours after today. I kind of hope maybe not, but we need to do something there.
Once again, Alan, can you follow up after this meeting with an assessment of where you think we are and how much more time we need to close this out?
Yes, I will try.
Okay. Thank you. Colin?
I was just going to comment on sensibility to Ian, and I've been trying to find time to talk about this, but maybe Ian could end up with some agenda time there as well on extensibility, same as Alan.
If Ian is the driver for this, I think it's so. Yes, Alan was willing to release it. So,
Will?
Yeah, I wanted to offer for the advertising. We've allocated an hour. I think I could do it in 45 minutes if it's a genuine 45 and not a compressed like it was last time we tried to do advertising. And then I could give that to Mike English to cover DOS resource protection.
Thank you. Suhas?
Hi, on the joining fetch, going back to Alan's request, the last interim we talked about people like someone proposing what's the problem with the current joining fetch. I don't think so. We saw any list discussion on that one. At least for me, before going to Boulder, I want to understand what's the problem with today's joining fetch and what are we trying to solve.
That is the subject for today.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
All right. With that, I think we're done with the agenda bash, so we can move to technical discussion. And this is when I have to sign off.
Okay. I will. And the agenda. Sorry, wrong. This. So Ian, bidirectional streams.
Yes, I didn't prepare any new slides for this. I don't know, Alan, do you want to actually start the discussion? Because I mean, a number of people have taken more detailed looks at the PR. I think it's getting to be in good shape. I don't think there are like outstanding problems with it. We have another PR that's separate that is fixing the MOQ pack issue, but that was actually created by the previous PR to move subscribe namespace onto its own stream. So this PR, that needs to be fixed regardless of this PR. I guess. Anyway, I'll let you take it out.
So I don't know. I think we wanted to come back here both because I think that at least in the author editor call last week, people had different ideas of what the working group vibe was about whether we wanted to go in this direction or not. So like have people read the PR? Do people feel comfortable with that and think that's what we should do now? Or do people think, no, this is a bad idea, we should just keep the control stream we have and whatever associated baggage that comes with it in V1? And so I think I would just like to hear, direction from the chairs. The working group says, go forth and polish this PR and land it, or the working group wants us to stop working on this.
For what it's worth, I hadn't read the PR because I didn't realize that was what needed to be done. So,
yeah, I don't know that the chairs, we worked out this detailed agenda got worked out with the chairs last week. I don't know why it didn't get out more broadly observed.
Sorry, that's it's might have been anyway. Can you provide any kind of saying? Is it just the PR here, and what's
Yeah. I can bring up the slides from last time.
Yeah,
I mean,
provide me with the context on this topic, please.
Sure. I can, if I can find them. Oh no, that's not the right one. Don't tell me. I said that. Yeah, there. Wait, how do I screen share again? Sorry. I requested it. Oh. No. Anyway. These are the slides from last time. Oh. So this is just going over the general design of putting requests on their own bidirectional stream. So that means, things like subscribe, update are not headed blind, blocking other control messages. It also gets rid of request IDs entirely because the main reason to have a request ID is to correlate control messages for a given request, such as a given subscribe or a given fetch. But now they're all on a BiDi stream, so that correlation is sort of automatic. It's done by the fact that it's on the stream. It doesn't change anything about one control stream to multiple bidirectional control streams. And I think it makes the request update situation quite a bit better than the status quo. I think Alan still has some concerns, but it certainly means that one subscriber sending a ton of request updates doesn't clog the control stream for all the other subscribers. And particularly as a relay person who's going to be operating relays, having a bunch of downstream people, some of whom might, even if they're not malicious, just write crappy clients or do bad things, having them not, headed line block one another certainly seems appealing from like a separation of concerns perspective. Yeah, subscribe namespace already landed. So yeah, get rid of request ID. I think it ditches like 200 lines of text as well as 7 messages or something. So yeah, that's the high level overview. And the PR now, I think, is addressed. I can go back and I think it's addressed all the substantive comments. There might be some editorializing, but that's about it.
Yeah. And I assume here that you want people to review the PR and just ensure that everything looks okay or not. So that we can...
Yeah, I think the most important thing is if, like, I mean, as I said, like as a operator, I like this because it gives me better separation between downstream and it doesn't create headline blocking in my upstream. But if I think the main reason not to do that, if there was like strong objection in terms of it's too much work, it's, I don't know, any of those things. Or if anyone identifies an issue that we haven't identified yet. I don't think that's likely at this point because this has been out there for a few months, but I mean, there's always a possibility. So,
Alan?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this. We talked about it in Montreal. We talked about it, I think, 2 weeks ago. The PR is available, and I think and people can go read the PR, it removes a bunch of stuff. It makes the draft 200 lines shorter. So I don't know that, yes, we want people to review the PR, but like primarily the reasoning I've heard from folks to say that they don't want to do this is that not because it seems like a poor technical direction, but because it seems sort of late, or like possibly disruptive from where we are. So I guess I want to solicit those people. If people are like, no, we really don't want to do this, or yes, like it's unfortunate that it's late, but we like it, so let's do it. Like, I mean, I think you don't necessarily need to read the details of the PR to understand that or not. My main concern, the one thing that I think you lose with the proposal that's there is we lose the mechanism that we have that effectively rate limits request updates. But I think we'll just reopen that issue and figure out a solution for it, which some people might think is do nothing. So I mean, I don't have any objections that would like block this, but I guess I want to hear from I want to hear what the consensus is.
Go ahead, Suez.
In general, I agree with sentiment that Alan has. Like, do we need this change at this point in time? But at the same time, this does bring separates the concerns of being able to manage the lifetime of a subscription based on the stream being available. That way, once stream is done, you know how the subscriptions and all the unidirectional streams that are part of the subscription should also automatically close. That is something I think the PR should probably clarify that part. And one I volunteered to do some more analysis on by removing the head of line blocking on a single control stream. We would have to be clearly define how the priorities of each of the control stream per subscription work. I think the current text is good enough, but I think I feel like one more review on that would be helpful. But other than that, in general, this seems like a good direction as a whole, even there's a bit of heavy lifting to do at this point in time.
Go ahead, Victor. Yeah, we couldn't hear you, Victor, if you tried to speak, so try again.
Is this better? Okay.
That's audible, yes.
Okay.
I can hear you.
So I think this is the right direction. If we get the details right. I also think this is good timing for this because we spent the last year trying to finish up things that are like the big API issues, and this is the biggest issue that it's not API for the protocol. So I think we should probably do this now.
Okay, let's go forward. I think we shares could run a call there, just stating to the list saying that, okay, we're doing this unless there's someone really screaming now and requiring more discussions on this direction. For details, comment on the PR. So we would run it, I guess, for 2 weeks, Alan, on normal consensus call. Okay, let's go on to next issue, or next agenda item, MOQ pack.
Okay, let me try to figure out screen share. Let me try. This will work better if it's a different tab or a different window.
I have one thing, Magnus. I would like to get a clear. I'd like to get this landed prior to the interim. I don't really. If we could avoid talking about the BiDi stream thing at the interim, I think that'd be good, just because we have so many other things to talk about, and some of the other stuff might.
So this would conclude on this, basically on the start of the interim, if we send it now.
Okay. I mean, maybe we could say it closes like the Friday prior or something. I mean, we haven't been sending out consensus calls for every PR. Really.
No, exactly. But that's I get the impression from you, especially Alan here, that it's like yes, and others, it's like this is a reasonably significant change.
It is.
Yes.
I agree. Yeah.
So you at least, yeah. I think we can do yes. Close it on Friday, so it will be.
Because I'd like people to be able to make their slides with like knowing whether it's a yes or no in mind, I guess, or my slides. Like, not that it will adjust things a lot, but it would adjust things like a little bit, just about how I talk about things.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
I requested a screen share. I don't know if it.
Yes. There you are.
Okay. Okay. You guys can see it. Okay. Yeah, it looks like it. Okay. So when we put subscribe namespace on its own bidirectional stream, we introduced potential problems with the way token caching works, or I should say token compression works, which is that you could register an alias on one stream and then attempt to use it on another stream, but then the receiver could process those out of order, and that would create what is currently a protocol violation if you try to reference an alias that's not been registered. So this is like the Band-Aid fix, which just says you're not allowed to send a use alias on a stream for an alias that got registered on a different stream until the sender has received a response to the message that contained the register. So meaning the sender knows that the alias has been created on the other side, and then you can use the alias on a different stream. If for some reason you're doing on the same stream, I don't know why you'd do that exactly. I guess potentially if it's like the unified control stream, depends on what happens with making more BiDi streams or not. But if you are going to send multiple messages on the same stream, they are necessarily ordered by the receiver, so you can safely use the alias without waiting for a response. And you also senders are not allowed to delete an alias if there is any message which you had a use alias for it that hasn't gotten a response yet. So I think those are the only rules that are required to sort of make it work. It does, particularly if we go to a BiDi stream per request, potentially it reduces some of the value of compression, because if I want to send you 3 subscribes and those are 3 different, they're all going to use the same token, but they are going to come on different streams. I really can't use the same alias safely there. I could, unless I had registered it, say, in setup, right? But if I had it at a different point, then it would take longer. So anyway, I think this is sort of the minimal diff that I think gets us to a safe place. We did also say in Toronto that like the next time this particular feature caused a problem, we were going to throw it out on its ear and make it an extension. So I guess my question to the group is, do you want the Band-Aid, or is it time to make this an extension?
Clarification question, Alan. Are you saying make it an extension for the authorization parameter itself, or?
No, I think what it would, the extension, and I think I was not in Toronto when you guys had the discussion about making it an extension, but this is so there would still be an authorization token parameter. The piece of it that would be different would be like whether it has this like alias type field, which tells you, I mean, there's a couple parameters that are related to the cache specifically, or at least one. There's a setup parameter that says how big the cache is. So that parameter would move to an extension. And possibly it would either introduce a new authentication token parameter. So there would be like auth token, which is whatever we had a year ago, which is like, or, and then then the extension would introduce like compressed auth token or something, which has the structure of the current one. Or the extension would modify the format of the existing auth token parameter. I don't know. I guess I haven't like actually tried to write such a thing. However, I think it's doable. We could come up with something that's useful. I mean, in a way to think about it, like because of the way the token cache size is already a setup parameter, this is already an optional feature. Nobody has to implement it. Many people have not implemented it. Because the default of the cache size is 0. So it's like, yeah, well, we're just not gonna use it. Colin?
So Alan's, yeah, on the extension thing, I had sort of been on the same page of like, given the cache size of 0 is allowed, this effectively is an extension. But just a clarifying question, is there any, I mean, when tokens become invalid, it's sort of the same as them being deleted. And unfortunately, that happens on the other side from the sender. It's not necessarily it's the receiver that invalidates a token. I'm just wondering if there's any issues that come up there. It's not clear to me that the issues are any worse than normal tokens expiring or going away. But
the right way to think about this feature is a compression feature, not a security feature. So you think about it the way HPAC or QPAC and HTTP can compress cookies, right? Cookies expire, they have all kinds of properties, but they might be sitting in your HPAC cache, and an HTTP request can reference one. A higher level will validate and be like, nope, that's not valid anymore. That doesn't satisfy my needs, whatever, or that's expired, you need a new one. But there's kind of a separation here. This is mostly about not sending the same information multiple times.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Just a question here. This seems to arise from the fact that we've got control messages going on different streams, and I must have missed the meeting.
That's what created the current problem.
Okay,
yes.
Yeah, and it's going to create it in multiple places. If we look at a joining fetch, for example, it can only join a prior subscription. And right now we depend on a fast start to do a subscription immediately followed by the joining fetch. But we're going to have the same problem here. You have to wait for the response on the subscription to know that it's been established because it's on one stream before you can issue your joining fetch on another and reference it. And that's going to slow down startup by an RTT, which is not desirable at all.
So I think the way it'll work, I mean, so we'll talk about joining fetch in a minute, and I think Ian has thoughts, but I think with joining fetch, let's say we did Ian's proposal. My understanding is you would still pipeline those two requests. So you'd open two streams, you'd send the subscribe on one, you'd send the fetch on the other, and there is an ID that links that says I'm joining that subscribe, and the receiver just has, if the fetch comes first and it's like I don't have a subscribe like that, it has to sort of wait for some period of time for it to show up and then error. But it's not
exactly.
a full
So
but in the optimistic case, those two messages are both in the same QUIC packet. So it's not really a problem in practice. But it is a problem. I mean, it is additional machinery. I don't know
if that logic works, then the same logic can apply to an auth token. If I send you an auth token that's referencing something and hasn't arrived, just wait a little bit and you'll probably get the reference. Why don't we apply that in this case when we do apply it for joining.
You are absolutely correct. And I spent, a few years of my life like as the editor of QPAC, which is the best RFC, 9204. Go have a read. It's beautiful. It's a lot of machinery. And if we really want that for compression, I think I would maybe, if that's what we want, right? Like the ability, which is in particular, the ability to handle out of order processing on your compression dictionary on the receiver side, I would almost start over on compression for auth tokens and just say like, how can we reuse QPAC directly, right? And just like, it has all of the machinery that it needs to like do all of that safely and do the proper accounting. Like, so that's sort of my view about why I would do it that way, rather than this is already a very long section that people have not implemented. So, and we could also do that. We could say, okay, we're not going to use QPAC directly. We're going to move this to an extension and we're going to add all the bells and whistles for out of order delivery that we need inspired by QPAC or done differently is fine, but it would not be, right. It just wouldn't be part of the core draft.
Okay. So I support it as you have it here on the screen. This fixes the existing code, and then we can implement something else later down the line. But this at least gets you to a working release.
Right. I mean, the question is, do we want this in MOQ core, or do we want the whole?
I want a single control stream so I can guaranteed order in which messages.
Okay. Okay. But we don't have a single control stream now because we broke out subscribe namespace already. So does anybody, what do people want? Should we land this PR? Or should we move auth tokens to an extension?
There we go. As an individual, I think I'd just land this PR. It seems good.
Okay. Will says land PR.
I have no objection. I mean, I don't see a problem with landing it. It fixes a known issue with the existing draft. So that's always a good rule to land.
Well, if the question is like, are we going to hit another problem in a month or something? And then, and people have not implemented it enough. I don't know I'm happy either way.
Can we land it and then let people implement it enough to get better feedback? Because
everybody says land, so we'll just land. But I guess I'm saying if you were on team, make this an extension. I want auth tokens out of the core draft to simplify the core draft. Now is your time to say, I really want to do that. But most people are saying they like it. They think this feature is worth keeping in the core draft.
It's sort of an extension already, as Colin said. So, I mean, I think a lot of people are like, I don't really care.
So,
okay. All right. I got the signal I need. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you. Then go to the next topic. Ian, joining fetch descent.
Yep. I have uploaded slides. And I can also.
I have approved them also.
Okay. So I should just request slides and the magic will occur.
Let's see if they have made it.
Oh, I see them.
Good.
Oh, no. I uploaded 2 sets of slides. It only is showing one of them.
Yes, I only approved the later because I assumed it was the later one.
Oh, they're two. No, they're 2 decks. They're unrelated.
Okay, I will approve both.
Okay. Oh.
That's what you get for being late with the slides. I can't have the time to think, but one moment I will fix it.
All right. So this deck, per Alan's comment, and is only focused on kind of conveying like potential problems with joining fetch, and is I do have a separate deck for potential solutions.
No, the other one should be up.
They're very high level, so I don't think we're going to get to them, but they're available if people want to look. But let's focus on making sure we understand what I believe are the challenges today. And I might have missed some things that are important to folks. So if, like, as I try to summarize, if I miss things that are important to you, please get in the mic line and make sure I do not miss a point that you've made. this is a fairly complex topic, so I'm sure I missed something. So, yeah. Right. So I want to start with kind of what are some key use cases and goals. This is not intended to be exhaustive, but when joining a stream, like these are some things that have come up in the past as key use cases. So obviously you want to be able to start at the current group, start at some prior group, do something similar but is subtly different, which is build a buffer n seconds behind live as quickly as possible. The difference between 2 and 3 is starting 2, you probably would use an ascending joining fetch today, and 3, you'd probably use a descending joining fetch today, if that makes sense. So like just for clarification. Start as quickly as possible, so the new group request sort of mode. And we need to clarify restarting a subscription, which currently has an outstanding PR we talked about last time, about when you set forward equal to 1, how do you make sure you actually get a join point and don't just get started in the middle of the group. All right. So we have some key goals. Obviously, minimizing join latency is very important. We also want to limit the amount of buffering and work, particularly on relays. So relays do not have an infinite amount of memory. We can't assume that they do. We'd like to avoid sending useless objects in a number of cases, and avoid headline blocking, which is kind of related to latency, but probably worth calling out. That as we're starting, if at all possible, we'd like to minimize the headline blocking that's unnecessary. Does anyone have anything they want to add or like contribute to this? Okay. Oh, Alan says avoid blasting the connection too much. Right. I mean, I guess that's limit record the buffering. I don't know. Yeah, but I agree. Like, yes, some amount of resource limits and flow control needs to be considered. So.
Yeah, just clarifying on what NGR is as quickly as possible. I mean, is that
new group request?
Oh, new group request. Okay, got it.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yep.
Sorry, and just another goal, as I see it, is for the scheme to work when the client is buffed. The client has a different notion of now from the server, and especially when groups, this delay is greater than a group duration, or RTT is approaching group duration.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. That yes,
it has to be robust over timelines that are separated between client and relay.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah, we definitely need to consider some subscriber publisher pairs might be quite close to each other, in the same rack. Some might be like a second away from each other, or some fairly long distance. That's a great point. I will try to add that to these slides later. Okay. So I'm going back on some motivations for fetch. One key one is providing relay networks an easy way to do flow control. Getting this right for HTTP has already been fairly challenging, so it's kind of a known issue. We allow multiple fetches today. We do not allow multiple subscribes. It's nice to have a way to ensure you get all the objects and you know about any object ID gaps, if there are any. Kind of related to flow control and back pressure, it limits the number of streams being used, and potentially it could be used for VOD playback, though we haven't really talked that much about exactly how one would optimally use fetch for VOD playback. But and yes, as I think Alan alluded to, back pressure and flow control is actually important. So we can't just act like it's not an issue. We need to at least have some limits on resource utilization. And to be clear, when we talk about resource limitation, I mean, the quick session has limits, right? But the issue here really is almost one of fairness or non-starvation, right? You don't want one subscription consuming all resource resources for a session. Well, I mean, unless that's the only one in the session, and then others getting starved. So, clearly we have ways to protect the peers collectively. This is protecting, one subscription from another, which again is why I kind of bring up the relay or kind of like proxy sort of use cases as being critical, because those are situations where you have multiple clients potentially coming in, and their subscriptions need to coexist kind of peacefully on the back end, regardless of what shenanigans they want to do kind of on the end subscriber portion. All right. One conceptual challenge is we said fetch is for the past and subscribe is for the future, but in reality, it's a little bit messier than that. Over QUIC is not TCP, and so reordering will happen. Particularly with prioritization, it's fairly easy to end up, say, the canonical example is I have one subgroup with all even objects and one with all odd objects, and one of them is lower priority than the other. It's pretty easy for all the base layer objects to arrive before all the enhancement layer objects. So subscribe is a filter, and it can send objects that are prior to the largest object. That's just the nature of the current, at least in the current design. And the only real way to guarantee that every object prior to the largest object is available when you kind of start a subscription, and you really have this like future or past nice clean separation, is to add head of line blocking, and that would sort of defeat the entire point of doing media over QUIC in the first place. And so I don't think we want to go that direction. So we just have to kind of hopefully make a system that like deals well with the messiness around kind of the live edge and more recent is actually optimized for this. Also, one challenge is like joining fetch is kind of, it's just a fetch, but it's not. It's the only request that depends on another request, as previously discussed. This adds a little bit of complexity in the whole BiDi stream PR. It's not particularly difficult. You just add an ID and then you associate them. But it's sort of an edge case. It's like an oddity that it's a request that depends on another request. Is also more imperative than declarative. It's saying like what to do, not like I want this data. And as I'll talk about a little bit later, there are cases when I think that like creates like some real challenges in the current design that we still haven't kind of fully dealt with. Great. So some practical challenges. There's no single message to start at the current group. There's no reliable way to get all the objects you want as quickly as possible. And we have to figure out, I mean, Alan has a PR, but like kind of what switching to forward equals 1 does and how to use it effectively. And as I mentioned on the previous slide, and the next slide, I'll talk about why we haven't actually solved the flow control problem at all. We've just kind of think we have, and we kicked it down the road. That's a little sad, but it's true. So, as I'm fond of saying, in the future will be the past, which is another way of saying, if you are starting to subscribe today with joining fetch and you have, things that are so quote unquote in the future and some in the past, I mean, this is based on the largest object when the subscription is started. And as a result, if you are, at least, especially if you are getting objects in ascending order from the past, by the time the fetch gets back to head, the head or the largest object will have moved on quite a bit. So an easy example is I want to start 10 seconds behind a live sports broadcast. And I have twice the bandwidth of the track. So it'll take 10 seconds to get to live. I'm going to be retrieving 20 seconds worth of objects in 10 seconds. And, the last half of the objects come by a subscribe. So which might be like, say, 2 groups or something. And the first half come by a fetch. So that 10 seconds worth of objects, by the time I'm getting them, are quote unquote in the past. And so we end up in the exact same situation we were trying to avoid with this whole starting at largest group thing. Now I don't have any fancy flow control or any mechanisms for these multiple groups that are being delivered via subscribe. And so, again, yes, joining fetch actually creates the exact thing we were sort of trying to avoid with fetch. And as a result, you can also end up with like weird quirky issues like priority inversion, where flow control can cause you to not send things on fetch, but you can put back pressure on fetch, but you can't unsubscribe and things like that in memory. So, Alan.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the flow you're describing here is sort of not the one, at least that I have thought of, which is that like if my goal is to build a 10-second buffer behind live, and I have 2x the bandwidth for the track, then I would do that with a descending fetch and subscribe, right? So like in 5 seconds, I'll have received 10 seconds worth of data, 5 seconds of live data, and 5 seconds of fetch data, and then then I'm good to go. Now, doing descending means you have you're starting. It delays your start time, but then if what you cared about was start time, then maybe this flow is also not optimized for that. So anyway, I just think I'm not sure I totally buy that like this is the only way to do this, and that it's like an unsolvable problem with what we currently have.
Yeah, I mean, okay, but you're basically saying like I could use the primitives we have to work around like the problems we have. Not, I don't know.
I mean, if you do this flow has problems. I agree with you. I think there's other potential flows that might do something.
But we say it's okay. Okay. We don't say you can't do this flow though.
Right. I mean, you could also go fetch from the beginning of time, and that would really suck. Like, don't do that either. Like,
but we don't say like, so I mean, one of the problems that comes from this is like we end up in the situation we said we were trying to avoid, which is like subscribe in the past with like no mechanism for flow control.
I don't think what I'm saying is like, so if the goal is to build a 10-second buffer behind live, you're not subscribing from the past. You subscribe from the current, and you fetch descending from the past, and your buffer will eventually reach 10 seconds.
But I can do the thing I'm saying that I can do today, right? Correct?
I'm sorry. Yes, you can, and it might suck.
Allows me to do this, correct?
I agree with that. I'm not arguing. I'm just saying that the way you've proposed to solve your problem is not the best way to do it with what we currently have. I'll stop talking.
I guess my point is like, part of my point is like the spec allows you to do something today that like we said we didn't like in the past, right? And I think the argument is I should do something different.
I don't think that's how it would work, right? Like if I issued the adjoining fetch like this, if I put fetch, if I did an ascending fetch and I made that higher priority, then the subscribe data will come into the relay and it may queue. And you may end up so far behind that the subscription gets dropped. And so that data never gets sent because you're sending so much data from the past. And then you'll have to sort of resubscribe. But
I agree.
In the practical case, there's no such thing as you're subscribing in the past. Like that doesn't exist.
Okay. But I mean, but if we think people joining things is like a common use case, then I don't really love the idea that a relay has to decide if like 10 seconds is like too much data to buffer or not. And like sometimes you get suddenly drops and sometimes you don't.
I mean,
it feels like a very like edge casey flow that is going to cause problems.
Relays have buffers. They will drop people who queue too much and don't consume. I cannot send you AX or flow control, and like you got to handle it. So,
yeah, sure. Here, Victor.
Yeah, I wanted to reiterate what Alan says, which is you can subscribe things to the past because subscribe is always forward uses things that's really just received, newly published. I am also not 100% like this does get complicated if you're trying to join with a large buffer and you're doing SVC, but that's realistically not a case people really care about, since usually you would only do most of the applications that use SVC have very low to almost no buffer.
Yes.
So realistically, if you have a large buffer, you're probably a VOD app which like knows the exact optimal order in which to backfill, and also you don't have a read joining fetch if you have 30 seconds of buffer, to be honest. But if it's low, that will not matter for that long, and you probably only really care about joining the latest group, and you might only start with like base layer. I don't know, but my point is, I think there are lots of edge cases if you're trying to explore the entire solution space. But for the common use cases, I think what we have in the draft should work.
I agree with your statement about use cases. I still think the thing in the draft is fairly suboptimal, but I'll go into that more later. But I agree with you also that if you're doing a standard, higher latency live broadcast, I would expect it's more likely to be stream per group sort of mapping. But then that also makes the flow control a lot easier, because now like when I'm going back like 2 groups, and like who cares about opening 3 streams instead of 1? So like the back pressure reason to like use fetch also like disappears. So anyway, I will move on. Okay. So there are a number of issues that are open. I'm going to highlight 2 next. Although 861 has a bunch of good discussion on it, which I didn't get to like re-summarize, but it partially because it's a little bit broad in scope. So if folks want to bring up anything from 861, I'm happy to discuss it. I ended up kind of focusing on 1039 and 1358, although those 2 things are also related. And I think the other thing that's worth discussing is, so we have an outstanding PR to fix request update to allow you to do join fetch with it. I mean, clearly, if we keep joining fetch as is, we need something like that, or at least it's helpful to have something like that. We also, in the past, added unknown ranges in fetch, which I'll mention a little bit in a moment. I mean, I think given the current design we have, that's a good optimization because it avoids you getting stuck on objects that don't currently exist basically indefinitely. But I also think that like using fetch for joining sort of like exacerbates the need to use those in like fairly frequently. Whereas otherwise, I think you probably would only need to use unknown ranges in cases when like, you really can't reach the original publisher, but you think they maybe will come back later today or something. And so you just don't want to say that it doesn't exist forever because you really don't know, but like, it's not just a matter of like, this is a latency optimization thing. Whereas today, I think you end up wanting to use unknown in cases where it's like a meaningful latency optimization. So as I highlight. All right. I think this is Will's issue, simplified joining at the latest join point. It's kind of a bummer we don't have a single message. I don't think this is purely an aesthetic issue, although it is sort of an aesthetic issue. So one is, joining fetch depends on a subscription. It's the only time we have a message depend on another message or request. This adds some amount of complexity in error cases as evidenced by the by-day streaming PR, but I mean, I think there are other kind of minor issues that can arise from this. I think it's a little bit more complex for a relay to manage as well, especially if you have a non-caching relay that's mostly just doing proxying and things, because it adds multiple messages, but they're sort of connected to each other, and they're sort of not. Because I have a difficult time fully understanding, for example, like if your fetch started going one way and your subscribe started going the other way upstream, like clearly that's not going to work. So like, even though there are multiple messages that they're fairly strongly dependent upon each other in like a really meaningful way, that I think splitting them up, you can't split them up until you hit a point that's going to resolve largest object, I guess is my point. And I don't think the current design is super clear on that. So, Cullen.
Well, I think there's sort of like a small thing and a big thing here. So like the small thing, I think it is defined. I think the first relay that gets them has to define the largest object, and they're split up from that point forward. And even when we did this, we said, hey, if we want a verb that's called join and fetch that has the
Right.
two fields of the two sets and do that, like obviously we can make that verb, and that might make more sense with bidirectional streams than it did before. But that's just a semantic change. That doesn't actually change. Well, it's just that's trivial syntax, right? So
It is.
when we get to the what we want them to actually do, I mean, I think we're going to have use cases. I think the use cases where they get split up going upstream is going to be very common. And the case that we see for this is we have a point of presence that has one stream of a high volume stream or a popular stream coming into a conference. It's fanned out to a couple of different relays that each handle a bunch of different subscribers. So that's coming in one way, but one of those subscribers has requested a fetch. It's probably not going to go to the local relay. It's probably going to go to something that's way back towards the origin that has it. So I think our implementation today will generate that case in some things where those would split apart.
Yeah. No, I think
a good thing to support that type of thing. So
yeah, I think merely moving into one message actually would actually probably clean up a number of issues, to be totally honest. So yeah.
Yeah. Particularly with the bidirectional streams, I don't really like it.
Yeah, I mean, there are other things. There's actually one more thing that's particularly problematic to me that I'll talk about in a moment. But
okay.
Alan, go for it.
I was just trying to find the text, which I couldn't immediately, but I swear we have it, which says whoever, like, if you're going to process a joining fetch, it has to be the same one that processed the subscribe. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Because it's relative to the largest object that's computed there. I refactored the section, and I know it was there at one point. We explicitly, and maybe Mike can confirm, but I know we said this, like, particularly for this non-caching case, like it sort of has to go the same way because it's a relay computation.
But that also means they need to get forwarded upstream identically, just to clarify.
Yeah, they got to go to the same place.
Right.
So I mean,
they have to get results like, same place. Okay. Yeah.
You know, in the relay that I have, like, this is you're like, where did that subscribe go? It went over there. Great. The fetch is going there too.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, again, I think these things that's resolvable. It's merely annoying. So, I'm on the other one. I put this all under 1358, but I actually think it's like more broad and touches on a few other things we've talked about and other issues. That subscribing to the current group today is slow still, or it's either slow or unreliable. It's kind of unclear to me which it is. So there's kind of just no reliable way to get all the latest objects, from the last few groups or something as quickly as possible. Like it just doesn't exist without a subscriber assuming an awful lot about the publisher's behavior. So fetch headline blocks on objects the publisher doesn't cache or doesn't have or are out of order or anything. In the cache case, it's kind of annoying because any sending fetch, which Alan doesn't like me using, but I will argue is still in the draft, so I still want to be able to use it. If it starts at group 1 and you only have 2 and beyond cached, you can't send anything at all until kind of group 1 is fetched. So at some point in the past, we kind of said, even for subscribe, like if you have data you can send immediately, like you should be able to send it sort of immediately to reduce latency and kind of start pre-warming the connection. And kind of the design we've created now, like explicitly makes that sort of impossible, because if it's in cache, it inherently has to be in the past and it has to be fetched data. So unless you happen to have already cached all the way back to the beginning of the joining fetch, you can't send anything, which is sort of a bummer, in my opinion. If a fetch skips objects with status unknown, which is added recently for latency, now the subscribe needs to know that it needs to deliver any of those objects that were skipped with unknown. But the subscribe and fetch are sort of, in theory, once resolved, like unlinked from each other. And so I think the only solution to that is that the subscribe needs to start at whatever group or whatever that the joining fetch does. I think that's the only solution to that, which I kind of have a PR to kind of try to start doing that, but I'm not sure. Anyway, this is quite non-intuitive to me, but I think that's the answer is, and also I guess we need a way to say, tell the fetch to skip things if they're not there. But you see my point is, like, today in the draft, like the thing you might want, which is like, I just want the fetch as fast as possible and I want the subscribe as fast as possible and like give me the stuff I need to start, is it's impossible to actually specify that today. Like a publisher might do it for you on, on its own behalf, but anyway, so a single message would make it easier for the publisher to actually give the subscriber all the stuff they want with whatever the optimal latency is they can pull off with, reasonable constraints. And also both of them could respectively optimize for their own memory and other constraints. Suas.
I'm just trying to understand the problem here. And I'm still not convinced how a single message addresses a problem. Maybe it's just for my understanding, like what is the use case that you're trying to see there's a problem that is leading to this problem?
So, I mean, a few examples are like for the current group case, like a simple one is this like enhancement layer, base layer thing where, you can imagine the cache has all the base layer or some substantial portion of the base layer, but not the enhancement layer. And because all the things it has in cache need to be delivered via fetch, you end up like blocking on like the second object until like the enhancement layer gets to the cache. I mean, so like that's a fairly simple scenario, but like, I mean, that's fairly sad. And in some cases it's sad enough that like you could be able to start by only playing the base layer if you knew that like the enhancement layer wasn't going to come, but you don't even get the base layer because you're waiting for the enhancement layer because the fetch is blocked on it. And so you're stuck in a situation where you don't really know what's going to happen and you're not really able to make particularly good choices. Whereas like, I think the relay could be like, okay, well, like I'm going to just skip over these as status unknown for now, but I'm going to note that. And then like, as a result, when they come, I'm just going to send them via published in the past or something. So
if in the case where we want the base layer to flow, I think because the base layer will be on a different priority than the other layer.
Right.
I think that still does that. I feel that's still okay. But on the other hand, where you're saying that if parts of my answer to my question has to be blocked, so I do not want to block until I get the answer. Maybe like what you're asking is some form of parameter that you can say in any kind of fetch message, saying that give me when you ask when you get the data, don't block on it. Like do not do head of line blocking. I'm just trying to see.
Right. It's a little bit difficult to. It's a little bit difficult to kind of know when to optimally apply that. I mean, the example of I want to go say 2 groups back and you have group 2 cache, but not 1, or I mean, so like clearly it won't take that long to like resolve the fetch and like start getting the thing you actually want to start, but you'd like to send the other one, but you don't really want to like just say unknown for group 1 because that doesn't really tell you anything about like, should you try again? Like,
right. My only concern there is that only the end application would know, can it wait so long or should it give up, right? Like my point is that why relay would not have application knowledge to make a better decision at that point in time, right? So unless if we can influence a decision a relay makes through an API parameter, I think that makes sense. But relay on hits by itself, I don't think so. It would be able to make such a decision either. Maybe, yeah.
I mean, I think it could make a reasonable choice, and like, I think it could do a better job of giving the client like what it asked for as quickly as possible than the client could, because it knows the state of its cache, and it also knows like some information about like the state of its upstream connections. Like, do I even have a source for like doing a fetch for this, or like currently do I not have any like namespaces being published where I can even go grab it or something? I don't know. But oh, Victor.
So do I understand correctly that basically what you want is something like a fetch message, but it can return things in a random order because so that it can send cache things before like it fetches everything that it does not have in the range.
Sure. I mean, I think that would functionally, yeah, that'd work fine. Yeah.
So my analysis is A, I can kind of envision cases where this works, but B, I don't really think this works in this is like that would be often a speed up, so I'm not entirely sure that like the complexity trade-off is worth it. Anyways, I do think this is something we could explore if we like have a lot of experience and like know that this is an issue. But right now, I think for most cases, this will not be the issue due to the thing with ordering and reordering that I mentioned before. And also, it is not clear to me that like there will be that many cases where fetching for the relay, fetching from backend is slow, but sending is fast. Like, I don't think that the penalty from backfilling is that big.
I don't think it's huge, but I think it's probably like at least on the order of an RTT or something, right? So like, I mean,
like
joining
this
fetch
is like it
fundamentally
is true that there is some cost, but like I would like us to understand how serious those are before, because like to solve this, we would need to do the things like do this reordering dance where we dump things from cache and then we fetch things that are not in cache, and that's kind of like a tricky proposition compared to just serving fetch in order, which is something we know we have to do to support things like VAT.
I mean, I will remind everyone that we added joining fetch as a less than one RTT optimization in the first place, and so
yes, but the important thing is the joining fetches optimization of the RTT between the AND subscriber and the relay. And here's the fetch backfill latency is like most case relay to relay or relay to publisher.
I think in my mental model, like the RTT of those things may or may not be like substantially different, but I agree the bandwidth is almost certainly quite a bit higher from relay to, well, typically higher. I don't know. I wouldn't want to assume all it was.
Anyway. So we're eating up time of the next agenda item currently. So, but I guess Alan and wrap up is probably.
Yeah, I think this is like my last slide conveniently. Okay, Alan, go for it.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, I think on this slide I was just thinking like if you really like, you're like, well, I want group one if you have it, but I don't if you don't, then probably do you want to send that as two fetches? Like,
I mean, in the extreme,
I want to like just like up level, which is like, do people have any like high level thoughts quickly about like what we like? Do we want to spend 3 hours on this in Boulder? If so, like, what are the most important things to solve? Like, or are people just like, after hearing 45 minutes, we'd rather just like patch up the status quo and go. Or maybe that's an async. Maybe we can figure that out offline. Maybe we don't have to do this live. But like, that's what I want to know. Like, do people understand the problems well enough to know there is one that we want to solve?
I think you will have to take the question to maybe list or the Slack or something.
I can just add one quick comment. If you want to solve it or not, there are two things that we can take it off list, but I don't think so making a single API would answer that question either. So if you're, I think we should keep those two as two different discussions and see what people think about it.
Yeah, I think we can. I think taking to the list is fine, and we'll see what progress we can make asynchronously.
Okay.
Wait, one more quick thought. How would people feel about a very lukewarm, non-committal show of hands, just so we have a temperature check on the room of like how many people want to spend a little more time on joining fetch versus how many people just want to move on? I don't know, chairs, if you think that's useful.
We can do it, but do you have a What do you want as question?
Never mind. I'll just send. I don't know. We'll peruse it offline or something. It'll take
Yeah,
too
please
long.
do that. So.
Yeah, I will also try to like enumerate what I think would be remaining work to be done to like kind of fix up the existing design. I think we came up with at least 2 changes more in this conversation. I think I have another one. I don't know. I think I could at least like put out a PR that's like, I think all the stuff we would have to do to get to like reasonable functionality. Certainly before Builder, but.
Okay, let's do that. So the last topic for today is filters, the way forward.
Okay, so Mo presented filters. It was about a month ago now. There was some discussion. I think the PR as written still needs some work. There's some comments there that need to be addressed, but I think from my perspective, the high level bit is that my gut says object filters are pretty close, and if we split that out of the PR, we could get that landed sooner. I think the track selection filter needs more thinking and more discussion with the group, because I think there are some people who have hesitations about it, and I think particularly the way it's spelled with object filters running first and track selection running second is something that like needs more like thought and discussion. However, I'm also not like, I want to check in with the group. What does the group feel about these? Like, if we think it's super important that they land together, we can continue working on it. It will just take longer. But if people want to start getting their hands on object filters sooner, like maybe we should take the time to like divide that PR, because it seems separable to me. So let me pause there and get signal on that. Victor?
My personal opinion is we should split for 2 reasons. One, I do think we should start cleaning up implementation sooner rather than later, because the object filters replace existing like code for filtering. So like the sooner we can deal with that, the better. And the other reason is I do think that there are some unresolved issues in the track filters that can like affect scalability. So we need more discussion on that.
Okay, Suhas?
I think I did read through the scalability concerns, and I tried to answer most of them. The way it's, if without the filters, there's more problems with scalability than with filters, because the filters are trying to reduce the amount of data that can flow through. I'm a bit surprised it's the opposite, that the way the conclusion here is, but if that's the case, we should have a discussion. Maybe this is something we should have a time spent at Boulder if we decide to do that. On the other hand, if the main concern is objects should be, the tracks filter should run before the object filter, that's something probably we should check with Mo on why he thinks that's the case. But if I given a chance to rewrite the filters, I would like to do everything in once rather than redoing this filter multiple times. I do have a PR that does, and it's not too much of work, but I would like to do the filter cleanup once. That would be my preference to go together.
Okay, so Victor says split, Suhas says don't split, Will says +1 split. Does anybody have any other thoughts on split, no split?
I was just going to say that the reason for not splitting is these are very intertwined when you try and write them up. But I don't get what the problem is with the. I mean, we've been discussing this for months, and it's always like there's a problem that we need to talk about, but we keep talking about whether to split than what the problem is. I don't really understand what the problem with the track filters is. Like this.
So I can quickly. So I think that my vibe was when we talked about it a month ago, and some people, and I agree, we need to spend more time talking about the track selection filter specifically. And like we want to put it on time in Boulder, I think it can. Maybe we're freeing up joining fetch time. I can't quite tell. But I do think it's very easy to separate these into two. Like the track selection filter either runs before or runs after, but it doesn't impact. There's so much functionality in object filters that is completely separable and landable and independent of track selection. I agree track selection depends on object filters, but not the other way. So, and I see Ian has +1 split. So, like at least like I gave a fair bit of thought into particularly on the problem why I want them to run first is the question is, can there be a different top end set for every subscriber based on their object filters? Or is there a top end set for a given subscribed namespace? So, you know, if I have 1,000 subscribers, they all subscribe
but that question is trivial to answer. I mean, if we're using this for, and I don't mean to interrupt, but I just want to be clear on the use case. The use case clearly answers that, right? If you have 2 subscribers that have different bandwidth that are trying to do some sort of server side bandwidth stuff, they have to be different track sets, right? So that answers that question, which has been floating around and blocking this for months.
In that case, I don't support
answered,
those track filters right now. I don't, they're not scalable and I don't want them. So we need to have a discussion about it.
So look, that's a very different thing. So I mean, I think that we need to resolve that before we decide whether to bother to go forward with the filters then, right?
Okay, but let me throw a hypothetical at you. Let's say the working group has consensus for object filters, but not top end. Do you want one without the other, or you're only going to take them together?
No, but I think we need to sort it. I mean, I don't think we would do the design of filters the same way if we weren't trying to do if we weren't trying to do this other stuff. So I think the decisions are intertwined. I'm not saying the PRs need to be the same. I think the decisions are intertwined, and we need to discuss the other problem a little bit first. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
And we keep avoiding discussing that. Like
it really isn't an avoidance. It's we have a lot of things to talk about, and like the editors came together and had this discussion last week, and like I left a request changes on that PR a month ago to have it split, and I'm not the only one. So yes, like
so look, I'm not discussing an opinion about the split or not split. I'm trying to discuss the problem of the issue, the underlying issue that people have concerns about is what I'd like to see us.
I mean, I think we're close to surfacing it. We're happy to I think we can get it in Boulder. I'll hand back to the chairs unless anybody else wants to weigh in on way forward.
Victor, were you in queue or not? We just left it. Okay. So that sounds like additional agenda request for track filters, Boulder. Let's figure out who's responsible for that. If we want to have time for discussing that too. Otherwise, we are out of time here. But I think we can put it into the Alan.
Yeah, I just maybe if we can put a finer point on what perspective, well, probably pursuant to previous discussions, we should have both do we want to like have the design team? Because it sounds like some members of the design team have different views on this. So should we have the design team be responsible for making that presentation? Because they have both viewpoints here.
If the design team is fine with that would be great. Who's taking responsibility to ensure that the design team actually discuss this and prepare for it? So
I can talk to Mo and see what he thinks about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think Victor was on the design team, but also has like concerns. Like, so it would maybe be good to like focus whatever this contentious point is probably what needs to be discussed in Boulder. And so making sure that like why it needs to be way A, why it needs to be way B, like as a what I think that's what I think would help me anyway.
Okay. Okay, I will follow up on this with the agenda request and see how much we managed to blow up our agenda here for this, get everything to fit together. But I hope this has been good preparations for the Boulder meeting, at least to get some surface, some issues and direction also for the previous item. So thank you, everyone. Thanks, Mike, for scribing. So talk to you in 2 weeks' time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.